Yeah, I want to talk about Magic the Gathering and the surrounding discourse around products that certain players don't like. Now, if you're watching this video, it's either because you're one of my regulars, the thumbnail caught your eye, or someone shared it with you after you said some variation of the expression, if you don't like it, just don't buy it. And to you, on behalf of the person who shared this video with you, may I just say, shut the fuck up. Do you think they're stupid? Do you think they don't know that they don't have to spend money on something if they don't like it? What was your comment aiming to achieve? Are you parroting back what you've heard a corporation say? Are you just complaining about somebody else complaining? You don't have to engage in the conversation if you don't like it, but you obviously know that, so isn't it reductive to listen to me say it? No, someone doesn't have to buy something if they don't like it, just like you didn't have to point that out. But sometimes, when we care about something, or we have passion for it and we can see something happening with it that we disagree with, we often feel the need to speak up, complain about it, or object, just like you did with your comment. Now, I've told you to shut up, so is my point that conflicting or oppositional opinions should be stamped out? Am I saying that discourse is only okay if it supports my perspective? No. But if all you're contributing to that discourse is to tell someone to ignore an issue, that they shouldn't complain about it, in essence, if you're only telling someone to shut the fuck up, then yeah, I'll happily say that back to you. Now, if you're still watching, is the rest of this video just me having a go at you personally? Actually no, because in all honesty, you raise a very good point, or at least seem to hold a philosophy that many other players apparently share. So I'd like to ask, if we don't like something, should we just not buy it and let that be the end of it? Now, this question could be asked of any number of things, but my channel is mostly Magic the Gathering focused, so I am going to be exclusively looking at this with Magic's official formats in mind. Casual kitchen table Magic is a bit of a free-for-all, for example, so what I have to say may not apply. But feel free to expand on what I say here if you feel it's applicable there, or even to other TCGs, board games, video games, cinema, retail products, whatever. I don't know how well it will translate, but if you're comfortable with it, then feel free. First, I want to start with why do people say this? If you don't like it, just don't buy it. No one's forcing you to play with the cards, you don't have a gun to your head, just skip the sets that you're not interested in. Or if you prefer, this product isn't for you. That's a sentiment that's been shared amongst the Magic player base for a very long time, seemingly stemming from the developers of the game themselves. Summed up best, I feel, by this video that my community helped me find. Weekly MTG Opening the Brothers' War, in which Communications Director Blake Rasmussen of 5713 answers a question on player burnout due to the sheer number of sets being released by saying, "There was a time, especially if you've been playing for a long time, I include myself in this, where every product was this momentous occasion that you had to be a part of because the next one wasn't coming for months and months and months. There were 4 of them a year and that was it, and that's not the case anymore. So my advice is to engage with the parts of Magic that you find fun and that you want to engage with, and not that you feel you must engage with." Okay, very solid and reasonable advice, I'm sure. I won't belabor the point, but in this video, Weekly MTG announcing Ultimate Masters, he says something similar again at 3743. "We've said this before, this is a premium product, so it's not for everyone." Cool philosophy that some people are just too poor to play your game. Awesome. And head designer Mark Rosewater says something similar again here on Twitter. "If that's not your cup of tea, then this might just not be the product for you." Right, and there's plenty more examples, but overall the message if you don't like something is, this product isn't for you. But the reason that I specifically picked those 3 examples, link in the description for them by the way, is that each were given separately in response to one of 3 main criticisms that I often hear players have with the game. In these examples, burnout, price, and uncards. Or, to get to the core of it, overload, accessibility, and design. So let's real quick talk about these issues and see if WotC's actions support their presented philosophy that it's okay for players to skip sets. Let's start with overload, and link in the description for this page from the MTG wiki, which lists all the products, full sets, standalone decks, the lot, that Magic has released in chronological order since 1993. Want to see what that looks like as a chart? Bam! That is insane, and more importantly, an awful lot of sets to keep up with in recent years. And yes, while those numbers include things like secret layers, which are new additions, I think it's fair to include them in the chart because some of those are mechanically unique, meaning if they include important cards or key game pieces, then that's your only way to get them. In turn, meaning that you in fact do need to mentally factor in each secret layer release if you don't want to miss out on potentially important cards. If you wanted Lara Croft, then you'd have better have bought that Tomb Raider secret layer or be prepared to pay a markup to a reseller. But is this really an issue? Like Blake said, so my advice is to engage with the parts of Magic that you find fun. Okay, tell me, how will you know which parts will and won't be fun unless you look at them all? As we just saw, that's a huge number of cards to mentally digest, thus leading to burnout, which is the specific issue you were responding to when you gave that answer. But more importantly, what if what you find fun is about to be affected by these new cards? Once upon a time, Modern wasn't a rotating format. Maybe that's why you liked it, because you didn't want to have to keep buying new cards. So can you just skip Modern Horizons 3 then? Well, if you do, more fool you, because the Nardu deck went on to have a 59% win rate at that year's Pro Tour. What if you're not playing Modern and just Commander? Well, for a period the card was so miserable to play against that it needed to be banned there too. And the fact that Nardu is now banned doesn't retroactively make it any more fun to have played against at the time. So I imagine if anyone took Watsy's advice, skipped to the set and then attended that Pro Tour would have not been pleased. But at the very least, Nardu's banning does make it the exception with a happy ending because it's no longer an issue. What about all the busted new cards that don't get banned? Maybe you took Watsy's advice and skipped to the Lord of the Rings set because you're not a fan. Well, whoopsie, the One Ring is now the most played card in Modern, according to Saffron Olive appearing in 50% of decks. But what if you don't play Modern or Commander? What if Standard is your jam? How easy is it to skip sets there? Well, in May 2023, Watsy announced that rotation is going to be increased to 3 years. That means if you decide, let's say, Dominaria United doesn't look all that fun to you, so you skip it, well now that's 3 years of having to deal with a Shieldred meta that you missed out on. Which actually leads to our next issue, accessibility. Dominaria United came out in 2022. If you're joining the game now and looking to get into Standard, or if you took their advice and skipped the set back then and begrudgingly want to pick up even just a single copy of Shieldred to remain competitive, it will set you back around $80 US. Because of course it will. It's a highly played card from a set that came out coming up to 3 years ago. The One Ring, in my opinion, is an even worse example because that's using an IP that Watsy don't own, meaning I think the chance of a future reprint is slim. Now admittedly, it is currently a bit cheaper at $60-ish, but that's only recently dropped in price because people think it will get banned. It was in the $100+ range. But my point still stands. If you play and enjoy any official format, you can't skip any products without running the risk of missing out on the latest busted card or key game piece that's going to potentially dominate for years to come. And yes, I did say product and not just set. For instance, did you know that the Assassin's Creed starter kit contained 31 exclusive cards that are all seemingly Modern and Commander legal? Are they any good? You don't know, because I bet you skipped that starter kit rather than expend the mental effort it would take to process the contents of yet another item on shelves. And is that fun? Missing out? Or losing games because you skipped the product that contained the most powerful winning cards? And for those of you that may be thinking, well that's the risk you run when skipping a side product like a Commander Precon or a Secret Lair, I refer you back to one of the main issues, Overload. Or if you're thinking that no one would choose to skip a set that contains cards legal in the format that they play, well first off, again, the Assassin's Creed starter kit contained exclusive Modern legal cards but was aimed at beginners so I could forgive people for skipping it. Second, Nardu's Commander banning proves that not every card busted in your format is printed in a product aimed at it. But third, if we look at this again, I said that one of the things that players criticise is design. I mentioned skipping Dominaria United earlier, so let's look at that as an example and ask, outside of external factors like price or stock availability, why would somebody choose to skip this set if they play Standard? Well, maybe they don't like the mechanics, maybe Domain and Enlist just didn't do it for them. Maybe they're not a fan of the play environment with the set's focus on legendary creatures for instance. Maybe they just don't like the setting or vibe. Dominaria isn't one of my favourite planes for instance. Bloomburrow and Duskmourn with its cutesy animals and haunted house are a good example of two back-to-back sets with vastly contradicting aesthetics which won't appeal to everyone. Meaning, some people might not want to buy or play cards from them just to remain relevant. I know many Standard players that were put off by the designs of some of these cards, and Lord of the Rings is a set designed for Modern but doesn't use Magic's own IP, and many people don't want to play a Fortnite Super Smash Bros. Crossover game with Universes Beyond cards. I know I certainly don't. So do all of these people take Watsy's advice and just skip, say, the Lord of the Rings set? No one's forcing them to buy it if they don't like Universes Beyond, remember? True, but again, the One Ring is the most played card in Modern. Like I said, I imagine the chances of a reprint are slim due to licensing issues. It's so busted that people are selling it off because they think it's about to get banned. Meaning, assuming it hasn't been banned already, you may be kicking yourself now if you skipped that set. Because your choices boil down to pay money for a card you seemingly didn't want in the first place, play without it and increase your chances of losing, or just don't play the game at all. And are any of those options what you would consider to be fun? Magic the Gathering is not a single player game, hence the gathering aspect, so you can't just avoid these sets by skipping them. There is no not engaging with a product because they're designed in such a way that each product must be engaged with. And Watsy know it too. Why else would they announce that all Universes Beyond products are now going to be legal in all formats? creating I think 6 full, standard legal, modern legal, and commander legal sets in 2025 alone, with power creep in a meta that sometimes shifts as little as 7 weeks apart due to constant releases. Who exactly is it that will be able to skip these sets then? And if your answer to that is some variation of, well, you don't have to add any of these cards to your own decks, no. But again, the reason that some of these cards are so pervasive is that you run the risk of being at a disadvantage if you don't. Magic is a competitive game, and I would argue that even if cards a player dislikes aren't in their decks, but are in their opponents', then everyone is still being forced to play with them regardless of whether they want them or not. I personally don't like poison counters, so I don't run cards that use them, but I've certainly still lost a game to them more than once, so yeah, I'd happily frame that as me being forced to engage with the mechanic whether I wanted to or not. And do you know who would agree with that opinion? Wizards of the Coast. In this video, Weekly MTG on the future of Commander at 1709, Vice President of Game Design Aaron Forsyth says, a lot actually, so I'm going to quote snippets, but in essence, I know my own journey into Commander, having been a Pro Tour player, whatever. I'm like, oh, they're playing this, they want me to play. I'll build a deck, my deck has Armageddon in it, I Armageddon people, I'm told like, don't do that, you shouldn't do that. And then, it's not in the spirit of what's going on. I think writing more of that down will help what happened to me and several other people that I know, so they won't step on that landmine and be told, nope, take your deck apart, you're not welcome here. Then, principal game designer Gavin Verhey says, there are a lot of unwritten rules, I think. Correct, there are. And just as is being discussed here, once those unwritten rules become popular enough and there's enough demand, they turn into written rules. That's how cards get banned, because enough people say, hey, this isn't fun, don't play this. You may very well be listening to me speak and thinking, well, I don't like X cards, but if my opponent runs them, I'd still happily play against them. And so, therefore, anyone who doesn't like X shouldn't complain and should just choose not to add them to their own decks like me. But then I would ask, where's the line? Is it fair to say that Shieldred should get banned? By that philosophy, if you don't like it, just don't play it, right? People think the One Ring might get banned. So what if it's in the majority of decks? If you don't like it, just don't play it, right? Was it really fair of Nardu to get banned? All those people complaining that it needed banning should have just chosen not to add it to their decks and thus not engage with it, right? Or if you hear someone complaining that they don't like a particular product for whatever reason, and you find yourself saying in response any variation of, this product isn't for you, because you know that there will be some people out there that like it, think it's fun, want to play it, and you're happy to play against them, then I ask again, where is the line? Aaron Forsyth clearly thought Armageddon would be fun in Commander, but now is so on board with the idea that it isn't fun that what's he designing an entire card power bracket system to make it easier to prevent people from adding it to their decks. Would you be happy to play against someone with Armageddon? And if so, does that mean that everyone should be? What about uncards? People find those fun after all, would you play against those? What about cards that have rotated out? People love older decks. What about banned cards? I can see how running something broken and dominating the table would be fun for me at least. Would you be happy to sit down and let me play that? What about proxies? Some people love printing their own cards. Are you happy to go against those? What about cards with custom designs like my X-Men cards for instance? These aren't even real cards, I created the rules for them myself, but I'd really have fun playing them. Does that mean that everyone should let me do that regardless of setting? No, then where's the line? You may know where your personal line is, but if that was everyone's line, then people wouldn't be complaining about things like Price or Universes Beyond in the first place, because everyone would be in agreement. So what good is it to tell someone if you don't like it, just don't buy it? The idea that people can just skip something that they don't like is sort of nonsense in current Magic, and doesn't look like it's going to improve anytime soon. And this may just be me, but I believe giving critical feedback to WotC, i.e. complaining about something, does work. And at least I for one think the game is better off when player feedback is taken into consideration. The discontinuation of epilogue boosters is a perfect example of how complaining about something gets results. So, every time I see something I don't like, yeah, I'm going to add my voice to the discourse because if enough of us make noise, then we can effect a positive change. And no, I won't be told to just ignore an issue when I see one. And to all of you, I hope the next time you're unhappy with something and so give feedback, voice concern or complain about it, regardless of whether it's due to product overload, accessibility or design, and someone tries to silence you by saying, if you don't like it, just don't buy it, then send them a link to this video and I will happily tell them to shut the fuck up right back. Thank you very much for watching this video, and thanks to everyone that supports me, like Eggboy the particle that permeates all existence, and the rest of my patrons whose names are on screen now. I'd also like to thank the sponsor for this video, me on my Patreon page where you can get your name credited on screen too. Check it out in the link in the description below. Hit the like button, leave a comment, install an ad block, and most importantly subscribe and share this video with a friend. or someone who's annoyed you. Hit the notification bell and do all those things the algorithm loves. If you agree or disagree with any of my points, and I fully expect that this time, or if you want to see me do a video on another subject, then let me know and I will see you next time.